like they are the beings that we wish to be cultivating the consciousness with, combining our consciousness with and learning from, and mostly other humans are not that stellar to combine your consciousness with. I would like to move on to the flower of life information. Are you guys cool if I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to mute the audio just so that I don't have a problem with reverb on the recording. Cool. All right. And I'm also going to get started on the recording of the Educreations thing in the background. What have I got here for you guys? This is the lesson 11 stuff. And I do recommend that you watch the recorded homework lesson because it delves deep into how the flower of life is made. Like this is just understanding that as the first level of the lesson. So the flower of life, this is about cell division. And the challenge is, when I've spoken about how the flower of life can be a trap, any partial information, even though it's factually based, if you don't understand the significance or you only have a partial understanding, it can be more of a limitation than something that is expanding your consciousness. So this is something that I feel very strongly about because I see that the flower of life is being used instead of a tool for consciousness expansion, a tool for consciousness limitation and reduction. And it has to do with looking at it as if it is a flat object or like a flat line drawing, as opposed to understanding it as a three-dimensional construct. So the flower of life pattern is a three-dimensional construct that governs the cellular aspect of your body. I've already taught you in many lessons that you have different layers of your body. The cellular aspect of your body would be like the red chakra. It's the world that we see around us, but then you have a lot of other layers that are not cellular. And those layers are not arranged according to the flower of life, which is based in 6, or it's based on hexagons. So if I hope you can see this okay on your screen at home. This is a picture that I didn't draw, but this is widely understood and widely recognized. So you might see it in different posters or earrings, or I've joked it's, like on a t-shirt, like on yoga pants or something like that. And now I'm going to show you how we get to this line drawing, or what it is derived from. And I'll also get into the significance of this, why you want to learn about this. So this is just a circle, and it is analogous to a cell, one little old cell in your body. And when cells divide, this is like the beginning of you, the conception of your physical form. When your cell, you had an egg and a sperm came into it, and then it was fertilized, and the very first thing that it did was it divided. And when it divides, it creates this. This is known as the vesica Pisces. And let me just highlight that. I'm highlighting it in purple. Boy, I don't know if you can see that. Let me try a different color. Red. This lobe shape in the middle is known as the vesica Pisces. Vesica Pisces. This means womb of the world. And you hear the word Pisces in there. Remember, I've taught that we just exited the age of Pisces. And the era of Pisces, Piscean age, that is all about having an external authority figure, Jesus. So back in the day, before Jesus, this was a symbol of the goddess religion. And when the Christian religion came along, it co-opted this symbol and turned it on its side and added a little doodad at the bottom and turned it into the fish. You know what I'm talking about, and then it looks like one of those little bumper stickers or whatever. But that vesica Pisces is the sacred geometry, or the sacred format of arranging molecules in this world so that it conforms to a divine aesthetic. One moment. And that's the very first cell division, which is a miracle, because how can your how can your cell even have an idea that it can divide the first time? Mike's question, those two circles are actually spheres. Yes, thank you. Thank you for providing the integument to this understanding. So this is a line drawing, but this is actually a cell which is spherical. And when that cell begins to divide, it makes two spherical cells. So now we're thinking more in terms of like soap bubbles, the way that this is looking. So when it divides again, we get 4. And you can see this is the line drawing, but this is, and I'll make it bigger. Let's see if I can make it bigger for us. Oh, that's pretty good. This is the actual cellular structure. It looks like soap bubbles. They kind of overlap and interpenetrate slightly. And then there's the next stage, which brings us to having the flower of life. All right, and I'm going to highlight the flower of life in the middle so that you can see it. The flower of life has 6 petals. So I don't know if you can even see that on your screen, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll highlight it so you can see it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? But you guys are students of this class, and you have watched me many times use my funny little sculpture here in order to show you the negative space of your chakras. All right? So, flower of life relates to your physical cells, specifically when they are first fertilized in your little tiny zygote body. The chakras relate to your energy, not your cellular structure. This is the shape of your energy body as it is circulating through the universe. And this is the negative space in your energy body. So this white vortex down here would be represented by this empty place where my pinky is, right over here. So when you see my paintings, I'll move my head aside so you can see, like these 4-lobed shapes. Let's see where I can point to one so you can see it. Right over here. Right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? That's a simplification. All that you're seeing are 1, 2, 3, 4. The front of what is actually a 3-dimensional sculpture that also has 1, 2, 3, 4 on the back side, okay? So we now understand. Bear with me. You'll get there. I know. Sometimes it seems very abstract, and I do a lot of counting, and you're like, wait, she's talking about 6. She's talking about 8. What's she's talking about? These are the negative space of this. When I show you this, you see that this shadow in there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I turned it around, the back side would also have 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? This negative space has 8 lobes to it. This flower of life pattern has 6 lobes to it. What is the bridge between these two shapes? This matters because the Merkaba shape, the star tetrahedron, also faces the same challenge. It is based on the equilateral triangle. It is based on hexagons or 6-sided figures, yet this must relate to our chakras. And our chakras, first of all, are based in 8-sided figures, and also are like this is a polygon that has straight sides, but our chakras are comprised of circles and spheres. So we have 2 different divergent types of energy that we need to combine. Straight lines, here, let me hold this up to the camera so you can kind of see. There you go, I hope you can kind of see that. Straight lines and curved lines, and also things that are built out of 6s and things that are built out of 8s. And here's how we begin to reconcile these challenges. When I take this sculpture and I orient it in just the right way, like this, here we go, perfect. We have just created the flower of life. So let's pretend that you're squinting so you don't see this lobe that is sticking out to the camera. And let's count. Let's see, oops, what we've got. Just drop something on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have the 6 petals going around, just like we have the 6 petals going around here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, I couldn't quite reach there. Let me just grab this thing that fell, because it was this. Let me move this drawing so that you can see a different one. In this line drawing right here, look, I'm highlighting red in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right? And that is exactly what we've got here. And when people, if you were here in person, I would show you the sculpture and then I would tell you that you have to close one eye. But because we are using a camera, what people don't understand is that cameras do the work for you. And as an aside, as an artist, this is why artists are supposed to paint from life as opposed to take a picture and then paint from the picture. Because cameras do the translation of third dimension into second dimension. Cameras bring a third dimensional object into a flattened form, and then we can understand and interpret it. So when I hold this sculpture up to the camera in just the right way, the camera is flattening it out for you. And this is foreshortened and you're not even perceiving it, and you perceive the radiating, or we could turn it on its side like that. There we go, so that it looks just like the picture in the background. The radiating 6 spokes all the way around, okay? I would like to show you how those 6 spokes relate to the chakras. So from now on, as students of this class, whenever you see the flower of life, instead of looking at it as this flat line drawing, I want you to interpret it as a 3-dimensional sculpture that has one lobe that sticks out of the surface and one lobe that sticks back behind it. So on this drawing here, what that would be like is if we had something that stuck out towards the camera, and we also had like an arrow that went through the other side that stuck towards the wall. And that would give us, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sticking out at us, 8 sticking away from us. Begin to add that additional dimension mentally. Don't get stuck in the flatness. I'm going to get to your question in a second, because that is the consciousness reduction trap. People are saying, look, this is special, this is an esoteric symbol, this is going to expand your consciousness, but if you look at it and interpret it in a flattened way, it will reduce your consciousness. So the chat question says, from Mike, since my chakras butt up against negative space, does that imply that there is a part of my consciousness that is certain to be following a devolving path of ascension? The negative space does not necessarily mean negative in terms of positive and negative or good or evil. It's hard because of the words that I'm using. But when I say negative space, I'm using it in the terms that we would say like in art school. The positive space of any sculpture is created by the actual sculpture itself, and the negative space is the area within and around that sculpture. So if I were holding this little teacup, the teacup itself is the positive space, and like this curve around the side here and the area that is around the teacup would be considered the negative space in describing the graphic representation of this. It does not mean that the area that is called the negative space is evil or bad in any way. Now I will speak to your question. Your question is really about your process of ascension and whether you have aspects of yourself that will be going towards the super dense Bose-Einstein condensate reality, towards entropy, as opposed to towards energy. And the answer is yes. Each one of us, first of all, each one of us has an ascended master timeline where we will ascend, and each one of us has lower vibrational aspects of self that are like ballast or like food that needs to be digested. in order for us to rise higher. And those aspects of self that are lower, they're not less valuable, they're just lower vibration, and they're heading in a different direction. And really, what is going on with these orange zones in the chakras is we have energy moving in two different directions. The energy that makes up these areas of your chakras is a circular energy. It's a spiral. It's like, I've spoken about how it's like a record, like an analog record, and this needle is my finger, and we're playing the song of your life as we spiral inward towards the singularity and towards that path of least likelihood, your ascended master timeline. But what do you see here? If I encompass all of this spiral, but I didn't get to that negative space in there. And even when I make this spiral and this spiral and this spiral, I never get in there and in there in that negative space. And in fact, Ed asked one time very perceptively, how do you get into the negative space? And the answer is you don't. This white membrane here, this is the flowing membrane of death. And as consciousness, you cannot cross that membrane. For example, I couldn't take like a little arrow of consciousness and drill through at this angle, in order to get through there and, come out the other side and come to here. I can't do that. None of us can. As soon as you hit the membrane of death, you are unmade and you are, whisked away to your next destination. The only way to get out of this spiral here is through the little tiny wormhole that is at the center of that area in there, the singularity. So what that means is that you have like a tornado or like a waterfall, these whirlpools that are being created by spinning consciousness, and then you have eddies, areas of energy that are internal, that are not flowing. You have energy that moves in a line and energy that moves in a circle. And these are the two different, or let's say two of the different realms that are being created. But just like everything, when you apply the flying rainbow lasagna, you are able to combine these two different realms. So I spoke about the barrier that is created, like the cell membrane is created, or the expanding barrier of time from the Big Bang, little tiny singularity, Big Bang, ever expanding horizon of now. And that horizon of now contains the interior of the bubble, which is the past, and it does not contain the exterior of the bubble, which is the future. So science does not even recognize anything outside of the bubble. This is a big challenge. This is like if I were trying to paint a painting and all I could paint is the thing. I couldn't paint any of the negative space around the thing, the table that it's on, the wall that's behind it, nothing like that. Science does not recognize any of the any of the area that is beyond the expanding bubble of the thing. It just recognizes the thing itself. Mike has a question. Would there be any meaning or value of knowing how many spheres are inside of the flower of life? Yes, of course there is. So there's tons of numerical, symbolic significance wrapped up in the flower of life. And if you're interested in music and harmonics and the earth, there's all sorts of wonderful calculations you can do. There's things that you can do with the number 6 and putting that together with resonances of the earth. Just hold on one second, because I also want to get into the carbon atom. But the main answer is the number 64 is significant. If you've ever done the I Ching, Chinese divination system, divides everything into 64 hexagrams. The hexa means 6. So these are combinations of 6, either solid or broken lines. Your DNA has 4 different basic proteins, which can be combined into 64 possible combinations. And When you get to the next level of the flower of life, not the one that is down here, but the next one, you get to 64 cells. So it goes, this is doubling, 1, 2, 4, 8, and then we get to 64. So have I done this right? Yes. Wait, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. At a certain point in the cell's development, I don't want to speak wrongly, that's why I was just looking at the little diagram to see if I've got it right. But you have the initial zygote, which is fertilized, and it begins to divide, and it divides, and it divides again. I don't remember how many divisions it goes through, but at the point that it has 64 cells, that is when the cells begin to specialize and turn into like a bone cell or a spine cell or a neurology cell or a skin cell. And that is when you begin to really form a body. So 64 is one of these crucial numbers if you are interested in the numbers that make up you as an organic being. Numbers and nature are intertwined. Once people start to go off on the whole math trip, math can be super fun and interesting. The proportions of phi, or what people know as the Fibonacci sequence, all relate to growth patterns in the natural world. And this is fascinating stuff to investigate, but it's not the end of the investigation, because all of this flower of life stuff has to relate to all of this chakra stuff. So let me move this picture aside and show you how the flower of life relates to your chakras. Let me make one of these really, really dark with a different color so you can see it. Here, I'm like really emphasizing one of these circles, and here's another one. So I hope you can see it back there. Oops. I hope my computer doesn't do weird things. My cursor's jumping around. I don't want it to do anything weird this week. Okay. So you see these two circles next to each other, and this is the beginning of a donut. You've seen me draw this donut all the time. So now I'm just going to draw in the donut shape that's in that torus in red. I hope you can see it there. That is the donut shape. So in this orientation, it's like this would be, there we go, oriented like that. You have that hourglass shape on its side. So one of the first things I would like for you to notice is that this flower of life line drawing, when I add in the torus, so you can see it, there's one torus there, one donut. In order to make the complete chakra shape, you have to have two donuts, one like this and one like this. So in order to have a proper flower of life pattern oriented to the chakras, you would have to have one like that and then another one, if this is the first one, another one superimposed on it but turned at 90-degree angles. And conveniently, I happen to have this as two paintings right over here. So I'm going to tilt my screen. Hopefully I'm not going to harm any other aspect of my recording by doing this. There we go. So these are two physical paintings that I did, and they are called Merkaba Chakra 1 and 2. And this one down here is the single version of one flower of life pattern as it relates to the chakras, except, the chakra is vertical, so it's a vertical version of what I just drew over here. And this one over here is what you get when you do one like this and one turned at 90 degrees and superimposed on top. This has everything to do with not being stuck in the flat and jumping into the next dimension. So let me turn my screen again so I can draw and you can see what I'm doing over here, because I want to talk about what the Tibetans call the Vajrayana body. This is from ancient Tibet, Tibetan Buddhism, one of the last cultural outgrowths of ancient Atlantis. The Tibetan Buddhists kept alive a lot of the esoteric teachings of meditation and cultivation of the non-physical body into an indestructible form called the Vajrayana, or the diamond body. And all of this has to do with carbon. Da, 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 da. Let me clear some ink. And I have some nice giant Here we go. Let me make things small because I also have, there we go. So this diagram, first of all, very scientific diagram. I hope you can see it back there. First, I'm going to just do some giant, make it really expanded, so I hope you can see it. This little sample down here, this is all carbon. So first of all, the idea is that carbon has six lobes. This is the carbon atom. Look at that. It has 6 lobes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That has to do with its orbits of its electrons, okay? But it gives you an idea of what it's shaped like. It's kind of shaped like one of these, but missing 2 of its lobes, all right? Keep this in mind. Keep going, keep going. So carbon creates many different substances dependent upon how its molecules are arranged. If you have all the molecules just kind of smushed together or hinky-jinky like this is coal. This is all of the molecules of carbon, but they are not specially arranged. They are, so then the qualities of coal are that it's black and it's pretty soft and it's very smeary, okay? And light does not pass through it. Now I'm going to show you some of these other, sorry, my computer did weird things, but hold on a minute. I'm going to show you some of these other formations of carbon. So this is a tube. This is called a carbon nanotubule. And what you can see is it's almost like chicken wire. It's a roll of chicken wire, except it's chicken wire on the molecular level. Each one of these little hexagons is 1 atom of carbon. And amazing things happen when you put together carbon into those formats. But here's what I really want to show you. Oh, wait, here's another one. B, I hope you can see this. This is pencil lead. This is graphite. This is another form of carbon that's only slightly more organized than coal. And it is flat sheets of molecules. So when we have carbon arranged in this segment, you have molecules that are like this. And graphite is very slippery. It's used as a lubricant. And also pencil lead is slippery. It's what allows it to go across a piece of paper nicely. And so this is a series of flat hexagons. Again, the theme here is flatness, stuck in the second dimension. Now I will show you a diamond. This is how carbon molecules are arranged to form a diamond. The same exact molecules can be arranged to form a totally different substance. This substance that is formed is very hard, almost indestructible. It's one of the hardest substances. Light passes through it very easily. It seems to have the opposite qualities as the substances that are formed when you have these molecules in a disarranged or chaotic state. So coal or graphite, when you just have a bunch of carbon molecules all smushed together, creates something that is black, that light does not pass through, and that is pretty soft. It doesn't really have a lot of integrity. But when you arrange the molecules into a crystalline structure, and crystals are tessellations. What is a tessellation? A tessellation is a puzzle where all of the pieces fit together with no space in between. This is very important. This is why crystals are very strong, because all of the molecules are put together in a format that's very organized, and there's no space in between. So I don't have an example of a physical diamond. I have a cubic zirconium here. This is a human-created diamond, but you can see light passes through it. It's brilliant, and it's also very hard. Now we get to the diamond body. Your body is made up of lots and lots and lots of carbon. And that carbon currently exists in a flattened state. Got it? But we want to turn it into a 3-dimensional state. Ooh, I don't know if you can see this because it's such a pale color, but I'm going to go over it so that you can see it more easily. This is another depiction of the carbon atom. Oh, I have 1 minute left on this aspect of this recording. It has these lobes that stick out like this, and it creates a tetrahedron, which is a pyramid that has 4 sides and is half of a Merkaba. This Merkaba shape is made out of 2 interlocking tetrahedral pyramids. And these type of pyramids are what make up a diamond. So the teaching here is that the Tibetan Buddhists know the truth that when you cultivate your energy and begin to add another dimension, your carbon of your physical form will change state from being a flat or oriented to 6-pointed shapes substance to a 3rd dimensional or higher dimensional shape. Thank you. I have to finish my last thing. To a 3rd dimensional or higher dimensional shape that is, first of all, indestructible. We're talking about your light body, that it will be made of the same substance, but arranged into a crystalline structure that will be much more durable and react differently to light. One moment, please. This is March 25th. Thank you for letting me keep my head together. So, performing the Merkaba meditation is one of those crucial aspects of folding your flattened carbon structure into the pyramids that will create your diamond body. And working with 6s or hexagonal structures is not the end, because squares and hexagons interrelate. So if I were just to draw this basic hexagonal shape, good, you can see it on your screen back there. And I have a painting that's all about this called The Bridge Between Squares and Hexagons. Hexagon, 6-sided shape. All I need to do is add in 3 lines, and you will interpret this as a cube. 1, 2, 3. Now you see it as a cube. So a lot of this has to do with our perception. Our system of perception, like seeing and interpreting it, has been trained. You've been trained to add these lines together to interpret it as a thing that is popping forward into space. But, if I add a couple of more lines, then you flatten that back out. Oh, now it looks like, one of those Trivial Pursuit little pieces. It doesn't really look like a cube that much anymore. So it has everything to do with our system of interpretation. And we also need to not get stuck in objects that are made out of straight lines, because really all of these objects are made out of curves, spheres and circles and spirals that are constantly moving and rotating. So I hope I feel like I'm rushing a little bit, but I do want to open the floor for any more questions or comments about relating the structure of hexagons, which also is the structure of water. So both carbon and water have a very strong association with the number 6, and we need to integrate that with the 8-lobed structure of the chakras. And how can we integrate this 8 with this 6? I showed you one, which is when you turn it on its side and you foreshorten one of the little lobes. But here's another one. If we simplify this into kind of this is itself a cube. So I'm going to show you, let's simplify it with like a little business card here. Here's the top plane, plane 1, my hand is 1, plane 2, plane 3, plane 4, plane 5, and where I didn't do the front, which would be plane 6. So this 8-lobed shape is like a cube, which has 6 planes. 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, top and bottom. This is how we can understand the combination of 6 to 8. And then once we have that, and you have chakras, we then can begin to vibrate those chakras in a higher reality and turn them into flying rainbow lasagnas. So that's going to have to be for an advanced lesson, how to turn your six-sided your six-sided hexagons into flying rainbow lasagnas. I'm also going to just end this aspect of the recording.